You, yeah, you, sitting there in your air-conditioned room, probably wearing pajama pants, sipping a $6 iced coffee made with milk from a nut. You ever think you could survive in the medieval times? Like really survive? Well, buckle up, you brave fool, because today we're dropping your soft oat milk loving butt into the dirt-caked, disease-ridden world of the Middle Ages. Spoiler alert, you're not gonna make it. But hey, don't click away just yet. If you enjoy watching your imaginary self suffer for entertainment, smash that like button and let me know in the comments which part of this hellscape broke you first. Now dim the lights, grab your favorite plague-free snack, and prepare to suffer vicariously. Let's begin. You wake up in medieval England. The year is, let's call it, 1347, because why not start on the brink of the Black Death? The first thing you notice is the smell. And when I say smell, I don't mean someone microwaved fish in the break room, bad. I mean raw sewage, dying rats, human sweat, and something that might be a rotting sheep corpse, bad. No, there is no Febreze, there is no soap, and the bed you're on, it's actually a sack of hay crawling with lice. Congratulations, you're itchy and probably already halfway to typhus. You groan and sit up and immediately hit your head on a low wooden beam. You're living in a one-room hut. Walls made of wattle and daub. That's mud and straw, by the way. Mud and straw. Your floor, dirt. Your window, a hole. Glass, piffed. That's for nobles and time travelers. You glance over and see your family, all 8 of them sleeping in the same room. Yep, no privacy, not even for your parents. And yes, they did that right there, while you pretended to sleep. Still feeling romantic about medieval times? Thought it was all knights, castles, and tavern songs, huh? Let me know in the comments if you thought there were actually toilets, because oh boy, we'll get to that. You try to freshen up, which means you splash your face with water from a wooden bucket that's been sitting stagnant for days. The water is brown. There's a slimy film on top. But sure, go ahead. Rub that cholera straight into your pores. Your teeth? Black. You don't have a toothbrush. You might have a stick, or a cloth, or nothing. Most people didn't brush at all. And toothpaste? Unless you count crushed bones and ash, you're out of luck. Breakfast? A chunk of black bread and maybe some onion. That's it. No toast, no butter, no Instagrammable avocado, no coffee. I repeat, no coffee. You feel a headache coming on. It's caffeine withdrawal, dehydration, and probably fleas. Outside your hovel, it's a symphony of misery. Chickens squawk. A neighbor is yelling at his goat. Someone is literally dumping a bucket of human waste into the street right outside your door. You nearly step in it barefoot because, surprise, shoes are for rich people. The air is thick with smoke from hearth fires, mixed with the sweet aroma of rotting fish and unwashed humanity. A bell tolls in the distance. Church, again. You hear coughing. Deep, wet, phlegmy coughing. Tuberculosis? Maybe? The plague? Who knows? Nobody's wearing a mask. Nobody knows what a germ is. You're already infected. You stumble toward the village gate, maybe hoping to flee to somewhere better. But whoops, you're not allowed to leave. You belong to the land. Remember? You're a serf. That means legally tied to your lord's estate, like a medieval Amazon warehouse worker without weekends. A guard stops you. He's drunk. It's 7 a.m. You try to explain you're from the future. Big mistake. He slaps you with the flat of his sword. Your nose bleeds. No one helps. No one cares. You're forced back to your job, which is just subsistence farming. You hoe dirt for 12 hours in the blazing sun, with 0 water breaks, no sunscreen, and the constant threat of stepping on a rusted nail or getting a festering wound from your wooden plow. Your hands blister, your back aches, your clothes are wool and itchy and soaked with sweat. You stink, the pigs stink, life stinks, and just when you think it can't get worse, it starts to rain. Cold, hard, horizontal. You shiver. There's no jacket. No waterproof anything. You get soaked to the bone. You finally limp home, soaked and exhausted. Dinner is what's left of that bread. Maybe a turnip. Your dad coughs blood onto the floor. Your sister has lice. Your brother is missing a toe. You all go to sleep on the same mat again. The lice crawl back in. So still think you could handle this? Still romanticizing ye olden days? Drop a mouse emoji in the comments if the rat poop in your soup didn't make you gag. Coming up next, where we talk about hygiene, medicine, and exactly how fast you'd die if you broke your ankle. Spoiler alert, real fast. Smash that like if you're still alive. Barely. The rain didn't stop overnight. It just got colder. You wake up soaked, shivering, and slightly more dead inside. Your hay mattress has transformed into a moldy sponge, and the one blanket you share with your family smells like wet dog had a love affair with mildew. You sneeze, a violent chest-shaking, snot-flinging medieval sneeze. Your mother looks up and makes the sign of the cross, because congratulations, you might have demons now. Remember, there's no germ theory. Coughing blood means you're either possessed, cursed, or pissed off a local witch. Either way, no one's calling a doctor. Not that you'd want them to. Doctors in this era are more likely to kill you than cure you. They'll bleed you with rusty knives or shove a live pigeon in your armpit. Yes, really, that was a treatment. Medicine is a delightful cocktail of superstition, leeches, and herbs some guy found in a ditch. You think you're immune because you're from the future? Sorry, pal. The moment you landed in this cesspool, your immune system waved the white flag. You're now battling things you can't pronounce with an immune system built on Flintstone vitamins. Good luck. You stumble outside. It's your turn to fetch water from the same stream people use as a toilet. The bucket is heavy. Your hands hurt. Your shoes are still non-existent. Halfway back, you slip in mud, or maybe poop. Could be both. You twist your ankle. You scream. A nearby peasant glances at you, shrugs, and goes back to chasing his runaway pig. Because here, if you can't walk, you don't work. And if you don't work, you don't eat. And if you don't eat, you die. So what happens now that your ankle is puffed up like a rotten apple? Well, assuming your bone didn't break the skin and invite the local plague parade inside, you might just get lucky and live. But odds are, infection sets in. There's no antibiotics, no painkillers. Just the local wise woman who offers to smear goose fat on it and chant at the moon. So now you're limping, hungry, and quite possibly infected with the kind of gangrene that makes your foot look like overcooked meat. You're sent to rest, which means lying in the corner of the hut, trying not to cry while a flea crawls into your ear. Your father tells you to be strong, but he's coughing so hard he sees God 3 times before lunch. Someone brings you a potion made of boiled bark and ale. You drink it. You throw up. It burns both ways. Night falls. There's a fire, but it's small, smoky, and not close enough. You're cold. Your toes throb. Your stomach growls. Someone's baby is crying. Someone's goat is in labor. You try to sleep. You can't. The pain is bad. But worse than the pain is the realization. This is it. No rescue. No modern medicine. No ambulance. No morphine. Just suffering. Raw, uncut, medieval-grade suffering. And this is just a sprained ankle. What happens if you break a leg, or get appendicitis, or an infected tooth? You die, slowly, screaming, or quietly, under a pile of hay, while your family mutters prayers and pretends not to notice the smell. So still think you'd survive medieval times? Think you'd be a knight or a queen? Nah, you'd be Lumpyfoot Joe, died in a puddle, age 23. Smash that like button if you've ever complained about your Wi-Fi speed and now feel deep shame. Because guess what? In this timeline, buffering is the sound of your lungs. You wake up to the sound of something wet slapping against your cheek. Surprise, it's a rat, a large one, possibly the mayor of the rat city under your floorboards. It scampers off, probably to file a complaint about the state of your hygiene. You groan, your ankle still a balloon of medieval despair, and attempt to sit up. Every joint creaks like a haunted rocking chair. You're 20, but in medieval years, you're approaching retirement. Your family is already eyeing you like expired meat. If you can't work, you're just another mouth to feed. You try to prove your usefulness by hobbling outside and promptly stepping in something squishy. Again, you can't tell if it's animal dung or the soul of hope leaking out of your body. You drag yourself to the village square where something approximating food is being handed out. Gruel, again, that's not a joke or a meme. It's your actual diet now. Gruel for breakfast, gruel for lunch, and wait for it, slightly warmer gruel for dinner. Want a snack? Lick a turnip. You think about the snacks of the future. Pizza, fries, chocolate. You salivate so hard you choke a little. An old man slaps your back, hard. Now your spine hurts too. He laughs, revealing exactly 3 teeth. You thank him. It's a reflex. He spits on the ground and shuffles off to yell at a tree. You sit on a log and try to eat the gruel, which tastes like sadness with a hint of bark. A child throws a rock at you. Why? Because it's Tuesday, and you're the designated rock target. You try to throw it back, but your aim is as injured as your ankle. It hits a chicken. The chicken starts screaming. Chickens scream, did you know that? They scream and flap and knock over the gruel pot. Now no one has lunch. A villager suggests hanging you for it. You laugh. They don't. You run. Well, limp. Fast limping. You hide behind the blacksmith's hut, which is the warmest place in town, not because of hospitality, but because there's fire. You hover near the wall like a moth with joint pain, hoping to soak up some heat. The blacksmith sees you and throws a horseshoe at your head. It misses, barely. You whisper thanks to Newton, even though he won't be born for centuries. A child screams nearby, not because of you this time. It's because her tooth fell out, and now the local superstition demands it be buried under a rock, or else she'll grow a second head. You offer to help. They decline. You're the gruel ruiner now. Your social standing is somewhere between pig and mold. A priest waddles into the square, smelling like incense and disapproval. He starts shouting about sin. Again, always sin. Breathing, sin. Limping, sin. Thinking about chocolate, super sin. You try to confess your many ills, but he waves you off and starts blessing the chickens instead. Probably safer that way. You return to your family hut, where the roof is now leaking directly onto your bed. Your mother has fashioned a bucket out of an old helmet. It's halfway full of water and despair. You lie down. The bucket drips rhythmically, like a torture device. You count the drops. You lose count. Your stomach growls like a dying bear. You consider eating your blanket. You do not. Progress. Outside, wolves howl. Or maybe it's your neighbor. Hard to tell these days. You close your eyes and try to sleep, but your mind won't shut up. It whispers sweet nothings like, remember toilets, and streaming services, and pillows that aren't full of hay and insect regret. You tell your brain to shut up. It doesn't. It starts humming the Netflix intro. You cry a little, just a single tear, enough to attract another flea. It jumps onto your eyelid. You scream. Your family ignores you. This is normal now. You ask the void how much longer you have to endure this. The void responds by dripping cold rainwater down your neck. Day 2. Only 48 to go. Maybe less if the infection wins. Hang in there, hero. Medieval life is like a roguelike dungeon run. Brutal, repetitive, and full of rats. You still think you'd survive this timeline? No. You're soft. You're a Wi-Fi baby. And this place is a meat grinder of the soul. Good luck with what's next. You wake up with a start, not because of a rooster crowing, but because someone is yelling loudly at a cow. The cow is unmoved, chewing grass with the vacant confidence of someone who's never paid taxes. The yelling man is your neighbor, and he's convinced the cow is possessed. You're not sure if he's wrong. The cow does stare into your soul sometimes. You roll out of bed, or rather, roll off the mound of straw and regret that passes for a bed, and land directly on a beetle the size of a toddler's fist. It crunches. Emotionally, so do you. You try to clean yourself with a damp rag you call a towel, which smells like someone wiped history's armpit with it. You consider brushing your teeth, but then remember you don't have a toothbrush or toothpaste, or most of your teeth. Breakfast is a mystery root you found behind the outhouse. You chew it slowly, wondering if it's edible or just your final mistake. Spoiler, it's edible. Barely. You drag your feet into the fields where you've been assigned to scare away crows. Not with a stick, with your face. Turns out, your current level of personal decay is an effective deterrent. You stand there for hours, arms out, dead inside and out, occasionally shouting boo at birds that are braver than you'll ever be. One crow poops on your head. You don't even flinch. You've accepted your fate. A traveling merchant passes by and laughs at you. He's got spices, trinkets, and stories of lands where people bathe more than once a month. He offers you a pebble in exchange for your shoes. You consider it. The pebble is shiny, but so are your shoes. With grime, you keep them, barely. Lunchtime is gruel, again. But today there's a twist. Someone dropped a beetle in the pot. It's protein now. You try not to taste it. You fail. You remember pizza again and sob quietly. A bard arrives in town and sings about heroism and dragons and love. You consider stabbing him with a spoon out of pure emotional whiplash. He's too cheerful. You are not. He sings near the well, where people toss in coins for wishes that never come true. You wish for a time machine, or soap, or death, whichever's faster. The priest hears your wish and declares you a heretic. Again, you try to explain sarcasm, but realize the word hasn't been invented yet. You're fined one turnip and made to kneel on beans for penance. Dried beans, sharp ones. You cry. The bard sings louder. You plot his downfall. The day ends with your neighbor screaming at the cow again. This time the cow wins and chases him into the forest. You hope he finds a better timeline. You curl up in bed, counting fleas like sheep, drifting into a dream where everything smells like cinnamon instead of mold. It's beautiful, until a rat slaps you awake again. Rinse and repeat. Medieval life isn't a chapter, it's a cycle, and you're very much still inside it. You try to stretch, but your spine sounds like someone snapping celery. Spoiler, medieval beds weren't beds. They were barely elevated planks stuffed with straw and a side of lice. You roll over. Wait, no. You attempt to roll over, but your entire body is one big cramp held together by regret and poor medieval ergonomics. As you sit up, your head smacks the low ceiling beam. Again, that's twice in 2 days, and no, there's no OSHA here. Concussions are just character development in this era. You stumble outside into the morning fog, which smells suspiciously like a fart sandwich. That's not fog, actually. That's just the town. Remember, people here throw their waste into the street. Literally, chamber pots meet open windows and gravity, and there's no warning yell either, just a sudden splash and the faint cry of, "Hey, shouldn't have been standing there." Try not to breathe through your nose. Oh wait, you just did. Big mistake. Your job, if we can call it that, is to walk 2 miles to the local manor where you're a servant. Not a cool Downton Abbey kind of servant, more like the scrub the Lord's privy with a rag made of hair and shame kind. You don't get paid, you get protection from being raided, which feels more like a protection racket than employment. But hey, you do get some bread. If you're lucky, it only has mild mold. The road to the manor is mud, not muddy, just mud, as in indistinguishable from a pig's spa day. You lose a shoe, you try to find it. You realize halfway through digging with your bare hand that it's probably gone, sacrificed to the swamp gods of medieval peasantry. R.I.P. left shoe. You were almost dry once. When you arrive at the manor, the Lord Steward is already yelling. About what? Doesn't matter. You just nod and pretend you understand his aggressive Latin-infused Middle English. Yes, my liege, you mumble while wondering how he has so many teeth when everyone else looks like a jack-o'-lantern. Nepotism, probably. You're ordered to clean the latrine pit, again. You ask when you'll get to do something else. They laugh. You laugh. Then you cry a little. The latrine smells like failure, old cabbage, and a lifetime of bad decisions. You try to hold your breath, but it's a long shift. You start hallucinating. The pit speaks to you. You speak back. It's the most honest conversation you've had in days. After surviving several near-death experiences involving a goose, a torch, and a barrel of fish, you get a lunch break. It's turnip stew. Again, you don't even ask what's in it anymore. Could be squirrel. Could be shoe leather. You don't care. You eat it like a prisoner licking condensation off the wall. By the time evening hits, your back is ruined, your hands are stained with mystery, and you've started naming the blisters on your feet. You trudge back home, narrowly dodging another chamber pot surprise attack. You make it into your shack, just as the cold sets in. Oh, didn't I mention there's no insulation, just wind and the occasional rat cuddle? You collapse onto your pile of straw, which now feels like a luxury. You close your eyes. Maybe tomorrow will be better. It won't, but keep telling yourself that. Still think you'd last a day? Morning hits you like a medieval tax collector with something to prove. You wake up with the unmistakable sensation of a rat sitting on your chest. Not metaphorically, a literal rat. You two lock eyes. There's a moment of silent understanding. Then it pees on you and scurries away. This is your alarm clock now. You are thriving. You rise, aching, itchy, and wondering if lice can unionize. Your clothes are still damp from yesterday. Why? Because in this period, drying anything requires actual sunlight and not the gray blanket of fog and despair that's currently hanging over your village. You slap your tunic against the wall a few times, hoping friction will somehow do the job. Spoiler, it won't. Breakfast, if you can call it that. You gnaw on a crust of bread so hard it could be used as a weapon in a tavern brawl. There's some old ale to wash it down, which is only slightly less cloudy than the puddle you stepped in last night. But at least it's mildly fermented, so congratulations, you're now buzzed before sunrise. That's just called being functional in the 1300s. Outside, the town is bustling, and by bustling, I mean someone's goat has broken loose and is currently terrorizing a group of children. You consider helping. You don't. You have your own problems, like the fact that your shoes have given up on life and are now basically socks with ambition. You're late for your role in the village's communal farming effort. A noble idea, really. Share the land, share the harvest. Except you're sharing the land with a guy who thinks burying dead rats increases crop yield, and a woman who waters plants with sour milk for blessings. You try not to question it. You just dig, hoe, repeat, and occasionally stop to yank out a weed that may or may not be a carrot. You can't tell. Everything here looks like depression and root vegetables. By noon, you're sweaty, sunburnt, yes, even under the cloud cover, Medieval UV rays don't play, and convinced your spine is shaped like a question mark. You sit down to rest and are immediately scolded by Old Man Hobart, who thinks sitting is for the rich and possibly the French. You get up. Again, lunchtime. Someone passes around boiled cabbage and something they claim is meat. You ask what kind. They laugh. You stop asking. The food tastes like cardboard dipped in sadness. But hey, calories are calories, and your standards died 2 acts ago. Later, you're sent to repair the fence that keeps wolves from getting too friendly. You've never actually seen a wolf, but you've heard them at night howling like they're auditioning for a gothic metal band. You patch up the fence using twine, leftover wood, and sheer desperation. It holds, barely. While walking back, you pass the town's priest giving a sermon to a half-dozen people and 1 chicken. You stop, mostly because it's the only entertainment around. He's yelling about sin and fire and eternal damnation, which honestly sounds a lot like your current lifestyle. You nod solemnly. The chicken clucks in agreement. You both leave, enlightened. By nightfall, your hands are blistered, your stomach is growling, and you're wondering if the lice have evolved into a council. You lie down on your straw pile, which now smells faintly of mold and goat, and try to sleep, but your neighbor is coughing again, loudly, consistently, historically. You wonder if it's the plague. You wonder if you want it. At least then you'd get a break. As you drift off, your last thought is, how did anyone survive this? And then a whisper from the universe answers, they didn't. That's why we have history books. You are definitely not making it to the weekend. You wake up to a sound that's hard to place. Not birdsong, not wind. No, it's the unmistakable clanging of metal, followed by a scream. Not a horror scream, more of a my foot is now part of a plow kind of scream. Ah yes, just another normal start to a medieval morning. Today you're chosen for market duty, which sounds fancy, but really just means you'll be hauling, selling, and probably getting ripped off by someone who smells like onions and regret. You're excited to go, though, mostly because the market is the only place you're allowed to see more than 6 people without being accused of sorcery. You walk several miles with a cart full of produce, which is generous. Half of it is bruised, the other half is questionable. 1 potato looks like it's plotting something. You arrive at the market just as the town crier is yelling something about a new tax on chimney smoke. Yes, chimney smoke. Breathing air with ambition is now taxable. You set up your stall next to a man selling miracle herbs and a woman aggressively pushing boiled squirrel. Business is slow. Everyone's broke, sick, or both. A peasant approaches, eyes your shriveled cabbage, and says, 2 coins? You respond, 3. He squints at you like you just insulted his grandmother. This cabbage has seen war, you argue. He leaves. You eat the cabbage out of spite. You try haggling, you try smiling, you try yelling. Nothing works. Eventually, you manage to sell a sack of turnips to a mysterious robed figure who doesn't speak and pays entirely in buttons. You accept it. Buttons are kind of like coins if you squint really hard and abandon all hope. Midday hits, and the local performers start doing their thing. A juggler drops every single ball. A lute player breaks a string and cries. A man swallows fire, panics, and nearly sets the pig merchant's beard ablaze. It's the best show you've seen in months. You clap until your hands hurt. Then you remember you were supposed to be working. You sell a few more things, mostly because people pity you. A noble woman stops by, buys nothing, but says how quaint. You consider saying something witty, but your mouth is full of pickled radish and self-loathing. By sunset, you've earned a total of 7 coins, 2 buttons, and a mysterious green rock that glows slightly. You don't ask questions. You just pack up your cart and prepare for the long walk home, now significantly lighter and only emotionally heavier. Halfway back, it starts to rain. Because of course it does. You use a burlap sack as a makeshift cloak, which helps only if you define help as soaks evenly. Your cart breaks a wheel, and you spend a good hour trying to fix it, using a stick, a prayer, and unresolved rage. It works, kind of. By the time you return, it's pitch black. No torches are lit. The village is quiet except for the sound of someone coughing again. Not your neighbor this time. No, it's you. Uh-oh. You eat what's left of your rations, crawl into your straw pile, and stare at the ceiling. There's a spider the size of a coin, or a button, depending on your new economic system. It stares back. You name it Gregory. Gregory seems nice. You close your eyes, exhausted, soaked, and unsure if your life is a peasant simulator or a comedy written by someone with unresolved trauma. Probably both. You sleep, knowing tomorrow will be exactly like today, except somehow worse. Midday sunlight filters through the cracked shutters of the tannery, casting golden beams onto a pool of something you're 90% sure used to be alive. Your fingers, now permanently pruned from marinating in historical horror fluids, twitch involuntarily as you haul yet another hide onto the rack. Leather making, you've realized, is less a profession and more a slow olfactory descent into madness. By this point, the smell doesn't even register. Either your nose has surrendered or your brain has entered some sort of defense shutdown mode. You're not sure which. A few hours ago, you may or may not have hallucinated the Virgin Mary riding a chicken through the doorway. You nodded respectfully and got back to stirring the hide soup. Priorities. Outside the tannery, a cart rolls by carrying barrels of something. No labels, no lids, just sloshing. The driver waves at you, all 7 of his fingers clutching the reins. You wave back and immediately regret the gesture when something drips from your sleeve onto your foot. The mystery deepens. A child runs past, barefoot and screeching, wielding what appears to be a leg bone like a sword. Behind him, a goat charges in hot pursuit, filled with the righteous fury of a creature that's probably seen you naked once or twice while chewing cud. You step aside casually, as if this is just another Tuesday, because it is. Your tanning supervisor, a man who looks like he crawled out of a chimney and then got angry about it, points at a pile of hides. You know what he means. Drag them, soak them, scrape them. Don't ask questions. That's the rule here. Questions lead to explanations, and explanations lead to existential collapse, and you're already at capacity. At some point, a commotion erupts near the village square. You sneak off, not because you care, but because if you spend one more minute massaging decomposing cow skin with fermented pea, you'll scream. Turns out, the town priest is yelling at a turnip merchant about sin. The turnip merchant, in turn, is yelling about taxation. Someone throws a turnip. The priest catches it, dramatically, like theatrically. You begin slow clapping before realizing this may result in your excommunication. Back at the tannery, you're put on flesh removal duty again. The tool they've given you is best described as a rusty suggestion of a knife. You pretend it's a chisel. For your sanity, you hum a tune while working, though you quickly learn that singing anything resembling melody is illegal unless sanctioned by the local baron's bard. The punishment? More tanning. Somehow, hours blur. Time isn't real anymore. Your hands are stained, your clothes are now technically biohazards, and your spine has decided to bend permanently, like a question mark. But hey, you're still alive. Kind of. Back in your shack, you scrub your hands with sand, because soap is a myth invented by wizards. Your neighbor, a mute old woman with surprisingly sharp teeth, watches you silently from her doorstep, occasionally nodding in approval. You think it's approval. It might also be hunger. Hard to tell. You crawl onto your straw pile, not to sleep, just to not be upright. Above you, the thatch roof leaks in a perfect rhythm, like a torture device designed by musicians. You stare up at the ceiling, wondering if anyone in the future is hearing this narration. If so, yes, you over there in the comfy chair. You're welcome. You're in the forest now. Not because you're on some whimsical nature walk, but because the village ran out of firewood, and you're the lucky soul selected to fetch more. It's not really a forest, so much as a haunted collection of angry trees with more crows than leaves. Every branch creaks ominously like it's judging your life choices. The path is mud, the air is cold, and your only tool is a dull axe with a loose head that may or may not become a flying death frisbee if you swing too hard. As you trudge deeper, your mind starts doing something dangerous, thinking. You start to wonder, was it always this bad? Did cavemen have better health care than this? Is this log gathering or a medieval survival game where the difficulty setting is permanently stuck on why are you still alive? Then it happens. Something rustles behind you. You freeze. Wolf? Bandit? A child looking for bread? Nope. Just an old woman in rags, standing completely still, staring at you like she's buffering in real life. You try to greet her because apparently your survival instincts were never properly installed. She doesn't answer, just limps away, but not before hissing something in Latin. Or maybe it was a sneeze. Either way, you're probably cursed now. Added to the list, you chop one log. One. The effort nearly detaches your spine. You glance around, wondering if it's enough. A squirrel watches you, its judgment louder than words. No, it's not enough. You chop more and more. Your hands blister, your back screams. You start hallucinating what looks like a modern plumbing system and cry a little inside. Meanwhile, bugs are having a buffet on your ankles. Congratulations, you're now part of the ecosystem. Heading back with your pathetic haul of wood, you pass a group of guards dragging someone into the woods. He's gagged. You pretend not to see. That's survival rule number 1. Don't ask questions. Rule number 2, don't look important. Rule number 3, if someone calls you peasant, that's probably the nicest thing you'll hear all day. You return to the village, dump the logs near the fire pit, and sit down hoping for thanks. What you get is an angry grunt and a command to go fetch water next, from the river, the same river upstream from the leper colony and the tanner's runoff. Young, you don't remember what happiness feels like. Was it bread, soap, freedom? Doesn't matter. Your entire existence now revolves around not dying in the dumbest way possible, which in this century is almost impossible. The river is colder than your optimism and smells like something died in it, because something definitely did. Probably several somethings. You stare into the murky water, wondering if dysentery has a taste, or if it just skips straight to internal warfare. With a sigh, you dip the wooden bucket in, pretending the dead fish floating nearby are just hallucinations from your last round of medieval malnutrition. As you carry the sloshing bucket back to the village, every step is a gamble. The handle cuts into your palm, your arm shakes, a single drop spills, and some guy shouts, "Wasting water is a sin." You consider hurling the entire bucket at him and declaring holy war, but remember you don't have health insurance, or weapons, or even the upper hand in any social situation. Back in the village, you hand off the water to someone marginally more important than you, which is everyone, and are rewarded with a task you didn't know existed: chicken chasing. Apparently, the Lord's favorite chicken escaped. You'd think the Lord has better things to do, like oppressing serfs or marrying a 12-year-old for political gain, but no, it's all hands on deck for one rogue bird. You spend the next hour running in circles, slipping in mud, you hope it's mud, diving into haystacks, and apologizing to angry geese who are not thrilled to be collateral damage in your poultry pursuit. The chicken is smarter than you. It looks you in the eye as it ducks just under your grasp and struts away like it knows tax policy. You finally catch it. You don't know how. You're not sure if it even matters. Your legs are shaking, your lungs are failing, and your shirt smells like barnyard tragedy. But you return, triumphant, holding the chicken like it's Excalibur. The Lord doesn't even look at you. A servant takes it, says, "You missed a feather," and walks off. You sit on a broken stool outside the granary, defeated. A kid runs by, screaming. Someone yells about a pig that bit the baker. The sky turns gray, because of course it does. You feel a raindrop hit your nose and think, "Oh good, now I can add trench foot to my collection." You start to laugh, not because anything is funny, but because it's all just so stupid. Your entire life is a glitch in the simulation. Somewhere someone is watching this and taking notes on how not to run a civilization, and that someone is definitely not helping. You're sent to the fields today, not to plow, not to plant, but to scare off the crows, which you're beginning to realize is medieval code for stand there doing nothing and feel your will to live decay like spoiled turnips. The tools you're given? A stick, a potato sack, and the vaguest instructions known to man. You look down at the sack, consider putting it over your own head to escape the shame, then sigh and trudge to the edge of the wheat field. Crows are smarter than you. That's a scientific fact now. They hover just far enough out of reach, cawing like they're heckling you from a cheap balcony seat. One even drops a little gift from above, because nature has a cruel sense of humor. You wave your stick like you're summoning dark spirits, but all you summon is a deeper sense of humiliation. A peasant walks by, sees you flailing, and mutters, "Another village idiot lost to the wind." You want to shout, "I'm doing my duty," but instead you inhale a bug and spend the next 2 minutes choking while the crows laugh in stereo. Lunch arrives, not for you, but for the Lord's hunting dogs. You're tossed a crust of something formerly bread adjacent and half an onion raw. You stare at it like it's a riddle from a sadistic wizard. The flavor is exactly what you imagine regret tastes like. You chew it with the same enthusiasm you'd have for gnawing on a sandal. Just when you're about to sit down, a bell rings, not the good kind. The church bell, which never means salvation, just obligation. Today, it's a tax count. Again, you didn't think it was possible to be taxed on soil, but apparently you owe a ground usage tithe for standing on land too long without permission. You hand over the one thing you have, a pebble you found that kind of looks like a duck, and the collector actually nods, pockets it, and walks away like it's legal tender. You begin to suspect this entire economy is just performance art. Later, a noble rides through, flanked by guards. You instinctively bow, not because of respect, but because anyone on a horse can legally beat you for eye contact. The noble doesn't even glance your way, but one of the guards drops a piece of parchment as they pass. You pick it up, hoping for secret orders or a treasure map. It's a wanted poster of you, or someone who looks like you. You can't tell. The drawing looks like a turnip with eyes. You stuff it in your sack. You don't have time for existential crises. There's still crow duty, ground taxes, and a new job someone just yelled at you about latrine patrol, which, judging by the smell, is going to be the highlight of your month. You are now officially the village's latrine boy. Not a title of prestige, unless you count the badge of dishonor that is the ever-present stench following you like an invisible curse. You're handed a broken wooden ladle and a bucket with a hole in it. You stare at both like they're ancient relics from a dark ritual, which, in a way, they are. Scoop and toss, the elder grunts, and walks off before you can scream, "Scoop and toss into where?" The pit. There's always a pit. You find it just outside the village, buzzing with a swarm of flies that have unionized and declared you their enemy. Each breath is a gamble, Each step toward it is a negotiation with your soul. You consider running away into the woods to join a band of outlaws or wolves, or even just lie face down in a stream. But no, you've seen the punishment for ditching your duties. It involves stocks, tomatoes, and a public shaming choir that sings exclusively off-key. So you do the job. Scoop, toss, gag, repeat. A peasant kid walks by and yells, "Mr. Pooh Man," and somehow that becomes your name for the rest of the week. You try to channel your inner strength, pretend you're a knight on a sacred mission. Then something wet splashes on your foot, and the illusion dies instantly. You're finally relieved of duty by a man who smells even worse than you, which is both comforting and terrifying. He hands you a wooden token as payment. You stare at it. It's got a drawing of a goat on one side, and what might be a fart cloud on the other. "Good for one turnip," he says with a wink, "at Gilda's stand." You're not even sure who Gilda is, but you tuck the token into your tunic like it's a platinum credit card. You stagger back to the village square, barely upright, when a bard suddenly starts playing a lute. Not well, but loudly. He's singing a song about the Dung Knight and making pointed eye contact with you during the chorus. People start joining in. Children are laughing. You are once again the unwilling main character in a medieval roast session. Someone hands you a turnip out of pity. It's soft, possibly alive. You eat it anyway. Then, without warning, you're conscripted again, this time to help carry water for the bathhouse. Bathhouse, you ask, puzzled? You mean that shack with the hot mud and the dead frog in the corner? Yes, that's the one. And the frog's name is Herbert, and he's the cleanest one there. You trudge back into duty with a bucket in each hand and no remaining dignity. Somewhere the narrator snickers and says, "You wanted immersion. This is what that smells like." You're carrying a bucket of water uphill to the village bathhouse, which sounds fancy until you realize it's really just a boiling mud hole next to a crumbling shed. The villagers insist it's healing. The minerals are good for your skin. One toothless man grins while scratching what appears to be a fungal ecosystem thriving on his neck. You lower the bucket slowly, like a ritual sacrifice, praying that no one asks you to actually get in. Too late. An elder woman grabs you by the elbow with a grip like iron. In. Now. You try to mumble something about skin conditions, fragile modern immune systems, whatever sounds plague adjacent enough to get out of it. She shoves you with the force of 1,000 regrets. You stumble, lose your balance, and face plant straight into a steaming pool of murky disappointment. Congratulations, you've just marinated yourself in other people's centuries of filth. Emerging like a war-hardened toad, you gasp and flail and try to wipe the grime from your eyes, but the towel they hand you is suspiciously damp and smells like onions. Someone claps. You assume it's out of mockery, but no, you've apparently just passed the village cleanliness test. You're now eligible to work inside the bathhouse. You wonder what unholy tasks that includes. Turns out, your job is to ladle hot water onto naked, chatty villagers while they gossip about whose goat has the best fur. One old man keeps calling you soap boy and winks every time he toots in the water. You're not sure if you've reached rock bottom or if the rock bottom has started speaking Latin to you. At one point, a high-pitched scream erupts. A chicken has somehow gotten into the bathhouse and is flapping through the steam like a greasy banshee. You try to catch it, slip on a mossy tile, and land face first into a half-empty bucket of lavender oil and regret. The villagers cheer. The old man toots again. You seriously consider living in the woods forever and starting a new life as a cryptid. After what feels like hours of steam, sweat, and unsolicited eye contact, you're finally dismissed. You collapse near a haystack, hoping for peace. But nope, a robed man approaches you, wearing enough amulets to be legally classified as wind chimes. You have the hands of a healer, he says ominously. You tell him you have the hands of a guy who just washed an old lady's feet and got a toenail in his eye. He isn't deterred. You've been chosen for the herbal trials, he declares, dramatically pulling out a sack of what looks like cursed parsley. You try to run, but you're too slippery from oil and shame. So now you're in the woods with a band of herbalists, learning to distinguish between healing moss and death moss, which apparently look exactly the same, except one makes your intestines cry for 3 days. They give you a tea to open your inner vision. Spoiler, it opens your inner bathroom door instead, and you spend the next 6 hours fertilizing a hollow log while hallucinating that the moon is judging you. Eventually, you're dragged back to camp, where the head herbalist insists you've been purified. You try to argue, but they hand you a crown made of twigs and rabbit fur and call you the chosen steeper. You just nod. You've learned it's easier this way. You're ceremonially escorted back to the village at sunrise, crowned with your twig tiara and reeking of boiled herbs and mild trauma. The herbalists chant behind you in a language that might just be really bad Latin or someone aggressively chewing on dry crackers. You don't ask questions anymore. You just shuffle forward like a prisoner of your own terrible decisions. The village greets you with confused applause, not enthusiastic, more like the polite clapping people do when someone trips and makes a recovery. Apparently, your status as chosen steeper means you're now the official taster for all medicinal concoctions. You're handed a wooden cup filled with a green bubbling liquid, and everyone stares at you like it's the final round of a game show called Will He Vomit? You sip, it tastes like minty despair and wet leaves. You smile weakly. Delicious. You lie. A child throws a rock at you. You deserve it. Soon you're being dragged to the village's one-room hospital, which is mostly just a barn with 2 beds, 3 leeches, and a goat named Gregory, who may or may not be in charge. An old healer woman, eyes cloudy with wisdom or cataracts, hands you a scroll. It's a list of people you now have to treat. The first patient has a splinter in his butt from a hay bale-related incident. You are given tweezers carved from bone and a grim warning. He kicks. You approach cautiously. The man is shirtless, giggling, and already lying down. You perform the procedure like you're defusing a bomb with your eyes closed. He screams. You scream. The goat screams. Somehow the splinter ends up in your arm. Gregory eats your scroll. You're demoted from chosen steeper to backup goat keeper, which is apparently not a metaphor. You are now responsible for feeding Gregory, who stares at you with unblinking disdain. His diet consists of turnips, hay, and whatever parchment he can steal, including, you discover too late, your only written record of how to avoid the town's daily plague zone. You get the plague, not the good kind, just a low-grade boil outbreak that leaves you with a newfound fear of mirrors and moist environments. But your suffering isn't over. The village priest, a man with half a nose and twice the confidence, insists that your boils are a divine sign. You've been touched by the sacred pox, he says, placing a wreath of dried garlic around your neck. This somehow makes your stench worse. The villagers now avoid you, not just out of pity, but out of nasal self-preservation. You attempt to escape during a late-night turnip run, but a band of moral enforcers, aka 3 drunk guys with sticks, catch you and drag you back. They lecture you on the importance of community suffering. One of them is wearing your shoes. The next day, you're tasked with leading the village in a healing chant. You don't know the words, so you just start humming something vaguely Gregorian, with the confidence of a man who no longer fears death. The villagers join in. Gregory starts headbutting a drum. Somehow it works. Or maybe people are just too exhausted to care anymore. That night, you finally get to sleep in a bed made of actual straw instead of whatever passed for bedding in the herb hut. It pokes you in all the wrong places, but for the first time in what feels like years, no one asks you to taste anything, treat anything, or interpret divine boils. You sigh, knowing full well it won't last. And somewhere, deep in the shadows near the woods, the moon blinks. Not figuratively, like literally blinks, but you're too tired to deal with cosmic foreshadowing, and your straw-bed dreams are violently interrupted by a sound that can only be described as a pig being exercised. You jolt upright, hay needles stuck to your face, only to find a wild-eyed man in a hooded robe, shaking a rattle made of bones and chanting, "He awakens." The meat oracle stirs. Apparently, you've been drafted into the annual meat divination festival. Don't remember signing up? That's because nobody asks. They just point at whoever had the strangest rash that week and declare them the prophet of pork. Guess who's the proud winner? You're led, barefoot and barely conscious, to the village square. There, on a stone slab, lies an enormous pig carcass, half-cooked, half-mystical, fully horrifying. The villagers gather around in silent reverence. A man with no eyebrows, probably singed off in last year's ceremony, hands you a greasy knife and whispers, "Speak, or the famine continues." You're expected to cut into the pig and read its entrails for signs from the gods. You squint at the glistening mess and start muttering nonsense. Yes, the bacon spirals reveal troubling omens, a shortage of socks, and too many left-handed goats. The villagers nod, solemnly. One woman faints. Someone starts crying. Just when you think you're done faking it, the high butcher demands a blood blessing, which apparently involves painting sigils on your chest with pig blood while doing interpretive dance. You try, you slip, you fall face first into the pig. The crowd gasps. Someone yells, "It's a sign." Now you're not just the meat oracle, you're the pig prophet. And unfortunately, that title comes with responsibilities, weekly ones. You're shoved into a newly constructed shrine of swine, which is basically a pigsty with slightly better curtains. Villagers come in droves to ask you questions like, "Will my son find love?" And "Should I marry the miller's daughter, or the other one who smells like turnips?" You answer them all with cryptic pig-based metaphors. The trotters know the path, but the mud must first be churned. They leave feeling enlightened. You leave wondering how long until salmonella takes you out of this nightmare. But just when things settle, a new problem arises. Rival prophets. From the neighboring village, a competing oracle named Bartholomew the Moist shows up, claiming his pig spirits are more accurate. The village is split. Debate rages. The mayor decides the only way to settle this is a swine-off. You and Bartholomew face each other in the middle of the square, each given a pig head, a bowl of offal, and a crowd of bloodthirsty peasants demanding divine clarity. Bartholomew begins with a poetic reading of pig spleen curvature. You counter by juggling intestines while chanting gibberish and rolling your eyes back like a medieval DJ on mushrooms. The crowd loses their minds. Someone throws a chicken at Bartholomew. You win. Your prize? A bigger shrine, a heavier crown, and a full-time apprentice, a 7-year-old named Egbert, who keeps feeding the pigs fermented apples and asking too many questions like, "Do pigs go to heaven?" You start answering yes, just to shut him up. But something strange happens. The pigs start acting odd, gathering in geometric patterns, refusing to squeal. One night, you swear they form a perfect pentagram in the mud. Gregory the goat sees it too, and starts wearing garlic like a necklace. Egbert draws weird symbols in the straw and says, "They're speaking to me now." You don't ask who they are. Suddenly the high butcher disappears. His knife is found embedded in a tree, upside down. The meat oracle gig is no longer just a farce. Now it feels like a cosmic horror novella written by a farmer who didn't finish school. You sleep with one eye open, cradling a pig skull for protection. And just when you think it can't get weirder, a voice in your dream says the swine throne awaits. You don't remember falling asleep, but you wake up inside a circle of salt. Not a good sign. A pig snorts softly beside you, wearing what looks like a crown made of chicken bones. Egbert sits cross-legged near your feet, eyes wide and unblinking, chanting something that sounds suspiciously like backward Latin. Egbert, you whisper, trying not to spook the pig. He slowly turns to you and grins. They chose you, he says. You're ready for the throne. Before you can demand who they are, again, a procession enters your pigsty shrine. Villagers in tattered robes, faces covered in pig blood and soot, moving in synchronized sways. One of them clutches a parchment made of suspiciously smooth leather. Another beats a drum made from a hollowed-out badger. The leader, your old math teacher, somehow declares, "The swine ascension must begin." You're still not sure if this is performance art or an actual nervous breakdown. They drag you gently but firmly to a hidden catacomb beneath the village. You didn't even know it existed. No one does, says the drummer, until it's time. Lit only by dripping candles and pig-fat torches, the catacomb smells like bacon and existential dread. Ancient carvings line the walls. Pigs, pigs, more pigs, and one suspiciously modern-looking spiral that looks like a corporate logo. You don't question it. You're too scared it might sue. At the center of the cavern, the swine throne. It's massive, bone-crafted, decorated with tusks and gilded hooves, and steaming somehow. Egbert whispers, "Sit." You ask, why? He simply says, "So the gods can see you better." You sit. Instantly, you hear whispers. Not from the villagers, not from Egbert, from the pigs. Thousands of them. Their voices flood your mind like oink-powered Wi-Fi. They tell you secrets, dark, greasy secrets, recipes for forgotten meats, hidden truths about the world, the fact that the village baker has been watering down his flour with ground-up parchment. Bastard, you pass out. When you come to, you're wearing a robe made of stitched pig ears. The villagers now bow as you pass. Children toss bacon bits at your feet like confetti. The mayor renames the town Swinelandia. There's a feast every night in your honor. You are living in a protein-rich fever dream, but power has its price. One night, the pigs turn silent. You rush to the sty, fearing the worst, only to find a massive symbol burned into the mud. It's the same one from the catacomb wall, and standing in the center of it is Bartholomew the Moist, alive, very moist, and holding a black pig. It snarls. Pigs aren't supposed to snarl. "I've returned," he says, voice echoing like a budget villain. The dark swine stirs. You try to rally the villagers, but most are too drunk on pig wine or busy crafting bacon-themed candles. Only Egbert and Gregory the goat stand by your side. You have one pitchfork between the three of you. This is not a winning army. Bartholomew raises the black pig. The sky darkens. A swirling portal of ham-colored lightning opens. The air smells like burnt sausages and old sin. You realize this is no longer just about being the village weirdo. This is about survival, reality, the cosmic balance of fat and flavor. Egbert leans in, whispering, "It's you or the moist." And somehow, the worst part, you still haven't figured out who you were before all this. Bartholomew, the moist, doesn't waste time. As the storm of pork-scented doom churns above the village, he raises his arms, and the black pig, which now has glowing red eyes and possibly a second snout, starts levitating. Villagers scream, crops wither, your left molar throbs with pure, unexplained evil. Egbert mutters an incantation under his breath that sounds suspiciously like the lyrics to an ancient Britney Spears song. You're not sure if he's helping or just losing his mind. Before you can ask, the ground splits open like a half-baked meat pie. From the crack rises a creature that can only be described as, well, imagine if a pig and a centipede had a child during a blood moon while listening to Gregorian chants backwards. That's what you're dealing with. It screeches like 1,000 butcher knives scraping cast iron, and your ears bleed just a little. Gregory the goat immediately faints. Egbert claps. "It's beautiful," he whispers. You start to suspect Egbert might be a liability. Bartholomew cackles, the villain kind, echoing with dramatic pauses. "You were never the chosen one," he declares. I was just too moist for them to handle," which frankly raises more questions than it answers. You look around. The villagers? Useless. Half of them are still face first in pig wine. The other half are debating whether this is all a metaphor. It's not. A very real demon pig centipede just set the town well on fire. Yes, well on fire. The village well. It's burning. Somehow, you grab the pitchfork. You name it Kevin, because if you're going to fight a demonic bacon serpent, you might as well do it with a named weapon. You charge. It goes badly. Kevin snaps on the first hit. The demon doesn't flinch. You roll away, straight into the mud, which now smells like despair and gravy. Egbert throws you something, a sausage. "It's enchanted," he says. You throw it at the demon. It bounces off and explodes in a puff of paprika. The demon coughs. You think that actually did something. You hurl more sausages. Egbert pulls them out of his robe like a buffet magician. The demon screeches again, reels, retreats. Bartholomew is not amused. "I spent 15 years in the grease realm for this," he yells. "Do you know what it's like being hunted by sentient frying pans? Honestly, and you're not sure you want to." He charges at you with a blade forged from pork ribs and broken dreams. You duck, trip on Gregory's unconscious body, and fall directly into the glowing mud. That's when you see it, the true swine sigil, hidden beneath centuries of pig droppings and bad decisions. You press your palm to it. It burns. Your eyes roll back. A voice speaks in your mind, deep, ancient, with a hint of French accent for some reason. "Do you accept the boar-bind?" You say yes, because of course you do. Power floods you. Suddenly, your fingernails turn into tiny tusks. Your breath smells of smoked ham. Your voice becomes a deep oink. You rise, radiating the raw might of 10,000 hogs. Egbert weeps. He's become the Baconator. You don't know what that means. Neither does he, but it sounds cool. Bartholomew charges. You uppercut him with your pig fist. He flies backward, crashes into the now slightly less on fire well, and vanishes with a greasy poof. The centipig, gone. The storm clears. The sky, blue and full of birds, who probably watched all this and are rethinking their migration plans. The villagers cheer. You're hoisted onto shoulders. Someone starts singing the national anthem of Swinelandia, which until now didn't exist. You are crowned, literally, this time, with a tiara made from gold bacon strips. You lean over to Egbert. "What now?" He grins. "We go north. The Cow Kingdom has declared war." You stare into the camera. Of course they have. And with that, you ride Gregory the goat, still dazed, into the sunset, your sausage arsenal strapped across your back, destiny marinated and ready for the grill. The world is quiet now. Too quiet. You sit on the throne, not of gold or ivory, but of old hay bales and partially chewed carrots in what was once your muddy, miserable village. Now it's, well, still muddy, but marginally less miserable. Children laugh. Pigs no longer chant in ancient tongues. The well, still inexplicably on fire, but that's just local flavor now. Gregory the goat has retired from active duty and now teaches interpretive dance to orphans. Egbert, ever the wild card, has opened a fusion tavern called Sorcery and Sausages, which is either a magical success or a culinary disaster, depending on the night. You're something between a hero and a local health code violation, but revered nonetheless. But something itches deep inside, not physically, though the ham sigil still burns faintly on your chest like a meat-based birthmark, but spiritually, because now you know things, dark things, like how the muffin monks of the eastern wastes are planning a revolution, or how the cow kingdom has developed siege weapons made of condensed lactose and unfiltered moo, and worst of all, the creeping rumor that Bartholomew the Moist wasn't destroyed, merely sautéed. You try to relax, sip some pig wine. A bard begins to play a tune in your honor, but halfway through, his lute explodes. Coincidence? Maybe, but you feel it. This isn't the end, just the calm between storms. You glance skyward. A single pork rind flutters down from above, landing in your palm like a greasy omen. You sigh, guess peace was just a side dish, and with that, you stand, again, always again, because in this world, there's no rest for the bacon blessed.